Hello YouTubers, 2008 Honda Civic, and we have slow power steering leak. So it's been going for probably a few years now. We needed to add power steering fluid like twice a year maybe, and now it's going down like in a few days. So we will get down and we'll check where the leak is. Alright, so we are just behind our rack and pinion, and as you can see just over there is our pressure hose, and that's exactly where it leaks. So we will get that hose replaced with the new one, and in this way we'll fix the leak. Considering that this vehicle has almost 140,000 Ks on it, it's 14 years, 15 or almost 15 years old now. So we will do power steering fluid change, and also we'll clean the reservoir. So we will start with pumping out the fluid out of the reservoir. I will be using the electrical fluid transfer pump. I will leave a link in the description to the video. So at this point we're just pumping everything out of the power steering reservoir into empty container. And you can see that even the owner has added a bunch of fluid recently. It's still quite dark, so it's due to change anyway. So now when the reservoir is empty, we will disconnect this return hose. There's just one clamp, and we will connect our pump to return hose, and we'll try to suck out the rest of the fluid. So when you do fluid change without replacing your hoses, pumps, whatever, in that case what you would usually do, you would take that hose off, connect it to your pump, plug that orifices that is connected to the hose, just without a piece of hose or cap, whatever, and then while you pump you just keep adding fresh fluid, so there's no air in the system. And as soon as you can see fresh fluid coming out, you spin your wheels left and right, pump again to see dark period of fluid coming out, and then you will see nice and clean coming out. It will mean that you have displaced all the old fluid. But at this point we just want to get everything out and don't put anything in, so we will remove this hose and connect it to the pump. To get to that hose, we will remove this AC line bracket and push it away. For this we use 10mm socket and 1/4" ratchet, or 1/4" impact rather, I should say, and I will leave the link in the descriptor to the video. So now we can push it a bit away to get to the hose clamp underneath. So now when our pump is connected to the return hose, we will just keep pumping until we extract all the fluid. So there is nothing more coming out of the line, so we'll just shut off the pump at this point. So right now all the system but the rack itself should be empty. So when we work on a high pressure hose, there shouldn't be too much fluid. There obviously will be a few droplets, but shouldn't be anything major. And when we put the new fluid in, we will push the rest out of the rack and pinion at the later phase. Alright, so for the parts, obviously we need a hose, and for the gates it's 352372 part number, and I will try to find and leave a link to the hose in the description to the video. And we need power steering fluid specifically for Honda and Acura's. It looks transparent like regular North American power steering fluid for cars and truck, but it's different. So make sure that it says Honda and Acura on the description. Alright, so we're back under the vehicle, and next what we will do, we will remove the sensor, pressure sensor out of the line. So here you just click this on top and pull up, so this will be removed. And next you need to remove the sensor itself, but we will do it when we get the line out, so we are not struggling here. If you need to remove a sensor, it's 17 mil wrenches, one to hold, one to turn. But for now we'll just take the harness off, and next we will move on a pump. So there are two, I believe, 10 millimeter bolts, so we will get those removed. Okay, so those two bolts are removed, and I was just able to reach it exactly where I'm filming from the back. My hand was thin and long enough to get through. So next we'll remove this bracket that holds the hose to the air intake, and it's also 10 mil. Alright, next we'll remove the 10 mil bolt just over there. It's basically on a bracket. It's hard to show, but you can see where my socket is. So it just basically holds the hose to the subframe. Okay, now last thing is to remove that connection from the rack and pinion. But before we do that, we'll take a wire brush and brake clean and clean everything around to make sure that nothing gets inside that we don't want to. Okay, so I got everything cleaned around that connection. So to get this removed, you need 22 mil wrench, and then just a matter of figuring out from which way you can access those and reach that nut. It's tight in here, so I need to go from the other side, maybe use the shorter wrench, but it's 22 mil, so I need to play with it. It's quite tight. So when I stick a smaller wrench in here, it's actually going not too bad, but it's a good idea to have a short wrench like that, because there's hoses, lines, transmission, power steering racks, and not much room, but a small wrench like this does the job. Alrighty, so the hose is out. So now we need to transfer the pressure sensor, this clamp, and also this clamp on a new hose. So in order to transfer this bracket, we need to transfer this piece too, and it's just one piece, so I guess I'll just cut it and then use electric tape to hold it in place while we put the bracket on. Seems like same deal with this bracket, so it looks like it's glued, so I will get it cut over here and we'll place it on a new line. So when you get the sensor out, and just a reminder, it's 17 mil over here and over here. There is a O-ring, and it seems like our kit has that green small O-ring that should go in here. So we'll replace the O-ring and put the old sensor on a new line. Right, so our hose is almost ready. We have one bracket transferred, second one. We have installed also a seal, an O-ring on this end, O-ring under the pressure sensor. Another thing that I would like to do to cap this connection over here, because when we put this hose in place, there is a chance that we will hit a firewall, hit an engine, and some debris gets in. So we will, since this is not capped, we will use this end and put it in first to keep it clean, and then since this is capped, we'll put this one the last. Alright, so the new hose is installed. So let's recap. So there are two 10mm bolts on a pump, then bracket on an air intake, then your pressure sensor electrical connection, then there is one bolt holding the bracket to the subframe, and connection on the rack and pinion itself. So this new connection is 19mm versus 22, that was the old one. Alright, so next we will remove the reservoir and disconnect it from the supply hose, and we'll get it washed. There is a screen inside, so we want to clean. So there is a bracket behind, and there's like a tongue at the very top of the attachment. You probably cannot see it, but anyway, like even if you just push it slightly back and wiggle it, you should be able to get it loose. So now we will remove that hose and we'll pull it out. So inside that reservoir there is a screen, and you can see a few particles on it. So we'll just use a brake clean and wash it back and forth until it's clean. So as I said, I use brake clean and compressed air to get all the junk, get all that filter nice and clean. So now we can put this back. Alright, so the reservoir is installed, the supply line is installed. So for the return line, we still need a job to do. So basically, our rack and pinion is still full of old fluid. So what we would do now, I just plugged the return connection to the reservoir with a piece of hose. We will fill the reservoir with fresh fluid, and we will lift the vehicle so the front wheels are in the air. We will turn on the pump, and we will turn our wheels all the way to the left and to the right. So our rack and pinion will work like a displacement pump, so it will push the old fluid out, and at the same time it will suck in the fresh fluid that will be in the reservoir. And we'll keep pumping, and when we see that all fluid is nice and clear, then we will stop. So now when the reservoir is full, we will turn on the pump, we'll go inside the vehicle and turn the steering wheel slowly, engine off obviously, and that should push out all the fluid, old fluid. So we'll turn the steering wheel. So the pump has primed the system, and I have shut it off. So now I'm just turning the wheel slowly so you can see how it pushes the old fluid. So now your rack and pinion works as the positive displacement pump. So I'm going all the way to the left. And then all the way to the right. Let's keep pushing, and you want to check your reservoir at the same time. So as you can see, our reservoir is on a low mark, so we can add a bit of fluid to make sure that we have as less air as possible. So now we will go back and we'll spin our wheels all the way to the right. Right, so we have spun our wheels. Now we'll just run the pump until we see clear fluid coming out. And you'll already see it's getting lighter, but we'll give it a bit more time. While it pumps, we make sure that our reservoir is full, so no air gets sucked in. So as you can see, the fluid is clear now. So at this point, we will need to remove our plug from the return line. So we will pump a little bit more to get the fluid down so it doesn't spill too much. Replace the hose and then fill up the reservoir. The reservoir is back in place. The return hose and supply hose are attached. We got the level to max. So last thing, we need to put this bracket back in place for the AC hose line that we removed at the very beginning. Next, we will start the vehicle while it's still lifted, and we will spin the wheels all the way to the right and to the left. Don't go to the dead end. As soon as you can see that you're getting close, just start spinning back. You don't want to lock the wheels when you bleed in the system. So you just go to the left, don't lock it. Go to the right, don't lock it. Put it straight. So now we check the level again. It went to the low, so we will top it up a bit and we'll call it done. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and as always, do it yourself.